focusing on the challenges of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's our war at home.
A new study finds a growing number of combat veterans are battling mental illness, but many are finding it difficult to get the help they need.
A disability check from the U.S. Veterans Administration can be the only thing standing between an injured veteran and homelessness, destitution, or worse. So it's troubling news that veterans are increasingly buried by bureaucratic red tape. Many of these vets fought for our country, and now they're fighting again, this time for their benefits.
New GI Bill. It promised greater educational benefits to returning combat veterans, but one group says the government has left veterans holding the bag. Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America say the Veterans Administration has only paid out 11% of all tuition claims. So that has created hardships for veterans trying to build new lives. Paul Rykoff is the executive director and founder of the IAVA.
Too often our veterans feel like they're David battling Goliath when dealing with the Department of Veterans Affairs. In the latest outrage involving the VA, it turns out thousands of claims for benefits weren't even opened.
Lost like those 16,000 pieces of unopened mail found in the VA's Detroit office, or 132 documents which belonged in veterans' claim files, ending up in the shred bins at 4 regional offices.
It's unacceptable to have them lost, have dates changed, have them shredded. This is not acceptable.
The Inspector General reviewed 390 claims submitted to the New York office and found 220 of them, more than half, had been deliberately misdated to make it look like claims were being processed faster than they really were. VA workers are overwhelmed by paperwork, 160 million pages a year. So they cut corners or just plain screw up.
An awful cover-up at the Veterans Administration. Its mental health director insisting fewer than 800 military personnel attempted suicide last year. The same man in private in an email even bearing the remarkable admonition, shh, admitting the number of suicide attempts last year was not 800, but more like 12,000. Our fourth story on the countdown, even as one of its hospitals closed its psychiatric ward after a fourth vet killed himself there, the VA is still treating the crisis with denial or deception or both. Last November, CBS News exposed the shockingly high number of vets committing suicide or attempting it, but the chief mental health officer of the VA, Dr. Ira Katz, vigorously denied it.
You see a very few Americans getting wealthier and wealthier. You see the biggest corporations in America's profits through the roof. ExxonMobil just made $40 billion, record profits. Tonight, 200,000 men and women who wore the uniform of the United States of America and served this country honorably will go to sleep under bridges and on graves.
First of all, the vast majority of veterans serve honorably and have productive lives. But the homeless veteran issue is part of a larger problem with the homeless in America. I'm glad it's being talked about. There's not enough being done. If there's one veteran, one guy or woman who served is under a bridge, that's wrong. And the Veterans Administration, and we're not doing enough for them, nobody is. But the homeless is a very serious problem, and the homeless veterans, it just makes it more criminal.
All right, but look.
Another shocking investigation underway of veterans' health records simply shredded or hidden by government employees unable to work to keep up with the workload. Let's go to our Pentagon correspondent, Chris Lawrence. Chris, how could this happen?
Well, Wolf, this investigation found a Veterans Affairs Department overworked, undermanned, and using technology that's way out of date. What you end up with is some workers doing anything just to keep up and reduce their own paperwork.
Veterans fight for their country and are injured in war. They never expected their medical forms to end up in someone's shredder. It started with an audit at the Detroit office of the Veterans Benefits Administration.
At the suggestion of a VBA employee, we took a look in the shred bins and found claim-related documents.
The Inspector General's office testified before Congress Tuesday on what happened next. The VA suspended all shredding, and inspectors kept looking. They found hundreds of claim forms in more than 40 regional offices, but have no idea how many more were destroyed.
In fact, I note that the shred bins we looked in had been emptied fairly recently and contained only about 14 days' worth of documents.
If VA's files were all electronic, the shredding incident could have been avoided.
Records will be scanned into computers, but the paperless system is at the earliest still a year away. The VA also found some offices were so overworked they held mail amnesty periods. Basically, where employees could turn in all the mail they had been hoarding in boxes and desk drawers with no penalty.
I think it's similar to, the library that has an amnesty program for your overdue books.
At one amnesty, employees turned in 16,000 pieces of mail. 16,000. One Marine wounded in Iraq says troops are told these same medical records are cherished when they sign up.
But when we get out of the military, it's frustrating to know that when we hand those records off to the VA, to the same government that has taught us how documents are, and it may seem or give the perception that they don't treat them with the same amount of scrutiny that they did when we were in the military, that can be a little overwhelming to service members and sort of make them lose a little bit of heart.